Everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 7 of Natsume's Book of Friends, or Natsume Yujin-Cho, and I've been told that I've been saying it wrong. I call it Natsume when it's Natsume. Look, y'all, if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, no, pronunciation is not my best. I try, but I have a natural twang. I have not the best dialect in the world. I tell my students this all the time. I blame it on where I was raised. But if I say Natsume instead of Natsume, y'all just gonna have to deal and be patient. I'll try, but I guarantee nothing, right? So we're on episode 7, and last episode was super good. Oh my gosh, just getting into Natsume. It's gonna be what it is. Natsume's just his developing friendship with the yokai along the same time as developing it with those classmates around him. So I really like that. I like that we're getting him developing more of a friendship with both the spirits and the people that he has to go to school with. So that's really nice. I want to talk real quick about a couple comments. J.M. Hases notes that Madara actually did take on their interpretation of Reiko's form. So we do get clarification of that Reiko is the one human, apparently, that Madara knows the most. And so he could take on that form, which makes perfect sense because they're the only human that Madara ever talks about. So that seems to be legit. And then Seppi noted that back in episode 4, Sasada's first name means pure. So it kind of makes sense why Shigure was very hesitant to kind of be around her, because he was afraid he was going to taint her name. And as we know from this series, names are very important to the yokai. That's why they're going up to Natsume to try to get their names, to get them back and everything. So that makes a lot more sense. It adds a little bit more context to that situation, which I really appreciate. So that's pretty much awesome. But yeah, so those are the only 2 comments that I had for this week. I'm really excited. We're getting towards the second half of the first season, which is exciting. We've kind of set up Natsume's struggles with the other yokai as well as his classmates in real life. So it's going to be fun to see where that goes to from here. But before we start real quick, I wanted to give a shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon to thank them for all of their support in everything that they do to help me be able to watch this series. And so I want to give a special shout out not only to our patrons and YouTube subscribers, because y'all are awesome, but also to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Bryant Reed, to Dana, to Danger Zone, to Davarin, to Danny Donmai, to Destiny Marie, to Ichu, to Eric, to Hong Ye He, as well as to Kiri, to Elfreya, to Lyndon, to Matthew Palfinier, to Murphew, to Nameless Monster, to Nicholas, to Ninths, to Inlee 2, to Sunspots, to Trails, to Shimoyama, and to Translucent Men. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, I'm going to clear out my throat a little bit. And we're going to get started. The cicadas have, you all can't hear it probably because I don't think the mic picks it up, but the cicadas have been all around my area, and there's like a swarm of them, and they have finally descended upon my homestead. And so there are cicadas everywhere, and it's like, I can hear it right now through the walls of my home. The sound of cicadas, it's that loud. And when you go outside, it's just like, it's crazy. So I don't think the mics can pick it up, but I can hear it right now. It's just insanity. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start episode 7 of Natsume's Book of Friends, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And Ruby's like, let's do it to it. I mean, I don't know what else I can say besides that Fox Spirit is the cutest thing ever. Oh, I don't know. I haven't edited yet to see if y'all can hear it, but I was having a tree taken down by my home. And as I'm like watching the episode, I hear like somebody chainsawing a tree, and I'm like, well, this is appropriate for the vibes of the loneliness of this little fox spirit being chopped down and replaced with the warmth and kindness of Natsume. Oh my god. Oh, So I want to talk a little bit about this episode. I don't know how deep we can go into it. I can definitely see why several people are like, oh, when you watch 2 episodes at a time, haha. The mods have told me that there are some episodes that can be watched really well together. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I don't want anybody to comment in the comments down below, well, here's when you should watch it. The moderator is one of the biggest fans of this show, so she has me taken care of. Don't you worry. But I can definitely see why watching more than 1 episode at a time will be beneficial after we're done with season 1, because a lot of the themes are starting to connect together. The idea of Natsume, like, what I like most about this episode is just how subtly Natsume is kind of like becoming, like, getting a home here. And I did want to point out, the moderator did note a comment, and I wanted to bring it up while I was in the discussion, but it was from, they noted, where is it at? Let me find it on here. Let me look on here and just let you all know. Zuri Joseph brought up a small correction that Natsume does not live in Reiko's old house. It's just from previous episodes, we know that the Fujiwaras are his distant relatives, which is the people he's staying with, and that Reiko used to live somewhere nearby. So that's how that goes. So he's not actually in his grandmother's old house. He's just near them, and the people he's staying with are distant relatives, so that's why they have all her stuff, and that's how the spirits all know where he's at, because you can smell him from a certain way, apparently. Yokai have really good olfactory senses. So this little fox spirit was so cute, and I was like, show, you're gonna try to make me cry. How dare you? Every episode, it's just like, here's this one little thing. It's gonna tug at your heartstrings. And the idea of this little fox spirit whose mom has passed, and he has a little shrine for her. The rocks are like the little gravestone, the little memorial. And he's like, look, this is, I have this hat. I'm gonna show it to you. I like the idea at the start of this item that's been left behind and abandoned, and the yokai latches onto it because it's lonely. To me, that kind of symbolizes why a lot of the yokai, who are, in many cases, spirits that have been abandoned or are lonely, and they're latching on to, they latched onto Reiko, and now they're latching on to Natsume because they are lonely and want something that's similar to them that can give them comfort and connection. And so that's why the fox spirit instantly gravitates towards Natsume, because he rescued him from those 2 really asshole spirits. Like, dude, I get that maybe these yokai have territories. I get that. But this little fox spirit's literally just sitting around by his mother's grave. He's not bothering anybody. He's not tricking anybody like the one yokai tricks him to get all the fish. He's not tricking anybody. He's literally minding his own business, has a little hat, and is sitting there staring at the sunlight filtering through it, not bothering a thing. And you guys are just being jerks and like kicking this little spirit where it's down. I'm like, that's so awful. Like, how dare you? Like, I'm glad Natsume kind of came in and punched you out, because that was not necessary. And then what's interesting is, I don't know, in the Japanese translation, it says a man must never cry. So they established that the spirit is male presenting, at least. But I thought the yokai were kind of androgynous and are just theys, or non-binary. So maybe not. I don't know. The spirit doesn't really have a name that we get. It's just the little fox spirit, the little kitsune. But so cute. So Toko, I like Toko and Shigeru are the names of the foster family that he's staying with, and he's going on the hot springs trip. And one thing I really like that's very subtle about this episode, at least with the dad character, like Toko, Natsume has a great relationship with her. We know from episode 1 that she's very kind and caring, and he seems to like really latch onto her compassion and her warmth, and he likes her a lot. But this is the first time we've really seen the dad character, and I think it's interesting that Natsume, despite having lots of male friends, and despite seemingly like not having a problem with having male friends, it seems like maybe towards like male figures of authority, he's kind of like, which we've had those flashbacks of him getting ridiculed by them and like kind of ostracized by previous people he stayed with. And they always seem to be like the male voices that spoke up. So maybe he just doesn't have a good relationship with older male characters. And so you can instantly see the apprehension when Shigeru starts talking to him. He's like, is it okay if I'm going on this trip? Are you okay with that? Did I do something wrong? Like, he instantly had this air of apprehension and like caution. And then the moment he was like, I just want you to pick up this pottery while you're there, because that'll save me a trip, Natsume was also not only like, oh, awesome, cool, whoo, but also was like really excited by the opportunity that he had been asked to do something and that he could be useful. Again, tying to the fox spirit, Natsume finding this idea that he could be useful to his foster family and taking that on, it connects instantly to the fox spirit that wants to be considered useful as well. Because Natsume, the last thing he wants is to be a burden. And you can see that on his face the moment that he like questions like, oh, you're going to the hot spring. Every ounce of animation on Natsume's face is just screaming, I'm a burden. You don't want me to go. I'm in trouble. And then he's like, no, we would like you to pick up this pottery actually. And then he's so happy at that point. Like he just instantly gets happy and starts like laughing about it and is excited. And that's when Madara is like, oh, you have a creepy laugh. And I'm like, leave him alone. Let him enjoy this. But just this show does like the tiniest little subtle things that you're like, oh, okay. And it never really calls them out. It never like points out these moments like, oh, you should be paying attention to them. It just happens. And if you miss it, you miss it. And if you get it, it just adds that much more layer and depth to the show. I like that they do a study group at I like that they do the study group at a hot springs. I wish we would go to like a water resort to do like after school study sessions. That would be amazing. But the Ferrucci High School study group location at the Kariba Hot Springs, you know what? If I was on a class trip with my classmates at my school and it was at a hot springs and you told me I had to sit through like an English lecture, even as an English major, I'd be like, let's hurry this up. It's kind of like if you are a teacher, and I've been to a couple conferences before to like present papers and things, and all the locations I've been to for conferences have been very boring. Like there's not much to do. But my one of my professors said that they had a conference in Hawaii one time, and they were like, nobody wanted to do anything because you're in Hawaii. There's an ocean next to you. There's a beach. So everybody was just like, all right, let's get through these presentations so we can go and hang out on the beach. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I don't blame them for all wanting to get done with this English lesson and being like, all right, after lunch, let's go. I also like just like looking at the extra randoms in the background, like the one girl with the little cross necklace in the background's interesting. And then the two bro friends, they're here like, come on, let's hang out. And Natsume's like, I gotta take care of something. I'm surprised at first that the two friends didn't volunteer to like go with Natsume to go find the pottery, but it makes sense. Natsume be afraid if they ran into a spirit or something might cause trouble. But I think it's interesting that they're like, oh, you have to go somewhere? Oh, you're doing something? What? Also, Madara's little pill bug walk is adorable. I don't know if I would be able to read this map that he has as well. It has all these geometric locations and like the waves of the land and everything. I'm not sure I would get it. That's interesting. But that's when he meets the little fox spirit. And yeah, they call him a crybaby fox. I'm like, leave him alone. He's just a little fox spirit. Quit hitting him. How mean. I like the continuity that Natsume is getting stronger because he's able to like defend himself and defend the fox spirit, and he also beats them up. Like I like the idea that as we go, Natsume is getting stronger and stronger against the spirits, because at first he couldn't really do much and Madara had to help him out all the time, but now that doesn't seem to be the case. Meanwhile, I like that Madara's like, why are you wasting your time helping them and getting the bowls? And he's like, well, we already came this way. We weren't able to get the bowls. We'll have to come back anyway. And Madara's like, well, it's just a vessel for your food. Just go to the supermarket and pick up a bowl. Madara would have paper plates and Dixie cups and he would not be a good host. Madara would be like, here's your food, get out. That's all he would do. So yeah, so then we go to see Natsume playing ball with the others. Should have known every baseball sports anime I've seen has had some form of BL elements, so should have known the best friends would be all about playing it. And I'm sure Natsume being tired during class, I don't know if it's just him being tired during class or if it's the fact that maybe he's been also helping spirits get their names back while he's there. I think the one thing that's interesting is that the fox spirit notes that Natsume is kind of pretending to be happy while he's hanging out with all of them, which is kind of sad to me because I would like Natsume to feel more like at home and connected with them. But on the one hand, I feel like Natsume, because none of the others know about the spirits, he's always kind of on edge because he can't tell them about it if he sees one, and he can't really do much about it while they're there. So, of course, he would feel kind of on edge the entire time. But also, I feel like Natsume is just naturally maybe an introverted person. And if you are slightly introverted, sometimes you have to feign enthusiasm. Like, I'm naturally introverted. I don't seem like it because I talk a lot, but I'm also talking to you in a room by myself. So there's that too. But when I'm in large crowds, I'm often kind of like just a fly on the wall. I like watching what everybody else is doing. And so if I have to participate, like in PE in high school, if I had to participate in something, I'd be like, okay, I'm here. I'm acting like I'm doing things so that you don't give me a bad grade. But I might have been very disinterested in the moment. So I kind of disassociate. So that's probably kind of what Natsume is doing as well, is just trying to like get through, but also Sasada is like the punching bag of this series. They are bound and determined to punish her at any corner possible, like with her getting hit with the pencil in the forehead, which is hilarious. Also, the fact that you see Natsume and the guys on one side of the screen in the next scene and her by herself. I feel for her. I feel for Sasada a little bit. She's trying to be friends. It's not working out for her. It's really kind of funny. Also, I want to talk about the fashion in this show. The fashion is really well done. Like in some anime I've watched, the high school fashion, there's all these belts and everything, and I'm like, what high schooler would wear those clothes? But here, these casual clothes feel so comfy and they just feel so natural. It's very early 2000s, and I'm kind of all here for it. I like it a lot. I just like the fashion design. It's great. And then yeah, the little fox spirits being like, Natsume's actions and aura feels false. I like the concept that the fox spirit's like, maybe he's not human. Maybe he just took human form like me. Which again, we talk about Natsume connecting with the spirits and how that works and why a spirit would maybe think that. And he's like, do you think that I could get him to stay in the forest with me? I do like poor Natsume's expression where he's like, uh-oh. And the moment where he realizes the fox spirit's following him and he's like, I'm only going to be here a short amount of time. I don't want him to get attached. At that moment, it hit me that there is a very strong possibility that Reiko could have encountered all of these spirits and they all were lonely like she was. And it could very well be the case, and we don't know for sure yet because we don't know a lot about Reiko, but it could very well be the case that Reiko, in trying to ease their loneliness, like when the fox spirit says, here, take my name and I'll be of use to you, and Natsume is like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I'm giving away names. I'm not getting any for myself. It could very well be the case that Reiko went with it and was like, sure, okay, yeah, I'll take your name, and then whenever I need you, you'll be there. And it was just loneliness trying to appease loneliness. But the problem with that is that Reiko never followed up. She took the name, appeased them, and was like, yeah, sure, I'll come back and see you sometime. But then either for whatever reason, she wasn't able to come back, and nothing was appeased. The loneliness wasn't satiated, nothing was resolved, and it was just this big open book. And now Natsume is tasked with closing that book and giving those names back and being like, hey, you need to move on, right? And so I like that he doesn't take the name of the fox spirit because he's like, no, you're useful on your own. You don't need me to be useful. And I feel like Reiko did not have that conversation the same way, which is interesting to me. So, and Madara could have been all for it because Madara was like, yeah, collect all them names. We'll use those someday. Right, Reiko? And then it never went through. But I'm curious. I'm curious what else we'll get about that as we go. We have a long way ahead of us in this series, so there's going to be plenty of time to dive in and see what Reiko's whole objective and what her reasoning was behind it. But I am curious of a couple things. I am curious, one, if Natsume will ever take a name and use it. And I'm curious if Natsume will ever actually use any of the names in the book. It seems like he won't, but I won't be surprised if he's used a name before with Mitsumi, right? or Mitsuri, I think it's Mitsumi. He used the name of the one spirit to get away from there. So it won't surprise me if he uses names again. Now, whether or not he takes a name, I could only see Natsume taking a name if it was a spirit that was harmful. So, like, for example, the two spirits that were beating up on the little fox spirit, if Natsume was not able to beat those two spirits and they kept on aggravating this fox spirit and he's like, hey, I warned you, go away, then I could see him taking their names just to make them leave, and then going back and giving them back to them later and saying, hey, look, I can do this next time, don't make me take those names again, or something like that. I don't see Natsume being the type to take a name unless it's a spirit that is just really powerful or really problematic, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I do feel for the little fox spirit. It seems like I thought for a while it was just stuck in the one area next to its mom's grave, but that just seems to be by choice. And then they go back. The little scene though, where the fox spirit gives him the leaf. That's so damn cute. That was so sweet. I cannot. Absolutely adorable. And then Madara's like, oh, some chopped liver, I'm going to be stuck out in the rain. Hilarious. But yeah, the little fox spirit being like, I was useful. And again, it's this idea that getting the motivation and encouragement from others that you do have a purpose in life and that you do have the strength to live for yourself. That moment there gave the fox spirit the courage to fight back, which was really, really cute. Right? I thought that was really sweet. Now, granted, it wasn't strong enough to fight back on its own. I do like when Natsume grabs it, he like holds the hand of that one spirit tight enough where it like leaves an imprint, right? That part was really, really good. I was like, oh, okay. I like the idea of Natsume being strong enough to face. He's got like some biceps forming. I like it. And he tells him to leave. So they give the spirit back to the one tree that wanted its spirits back. What was its name? He gives it back, and that's when the little fox spirit sees him have the Book of Friends. And it says, so Sawarabi takes the tree spirit back. And then, of course, the other spirits get terrified and run away because they think he's going to steal it. I like this one shot of him standing there holding the Book of Friends. And again, Madara looks like a little tiny bug. It's cute. So they get the pottery back. It's okay. When they're like, what a lovely color. I'm like, it's the color of poop. I guess it's a very neutral brown. It's not even like a rich chocolate color. I don't know. Maybe the quality of the print that I'm watching, maybe in like 4D Blu-ray, it looks a lot better. It did not look very good on my end, but what do I know? I'm not into eclectic pottery. But the moment that they give Natsume their own little pot, it's like including him as part of the family and making him feel more welcome. That part's so sweet because I feel like Natsume, from going from house to house and being bounced around, hasn't had that before. So this is like a chance for them to like have a moment of acceptance, and it's so sweet. I love it. I love it so much. But yeah. And then the little fox with the hat and everything says, I wish I could see Natsume. So it gets tricked by this one spirit, which is interesting. This big old spirit tricks him into gathering all this fish for him, which it did look really cute when he was gathering all the fish. And you could see like him just trying to gather the fish up and the one spirit's just eating them all. Like, what sucks is we kind of get a little bit into the world of the yokai and the idea that they kind of are mean to each other, whether they're bullying the smaller spirits or they're tricking them. It does set up where a spirit would get very disillusioned and sad in a world like this, which would make the moment that you meet someone kind, you just want to latch onto them, which is very much like the real world. There's a lot of trolls and jerk people in the world. And it's easy if you're around people that are like that all the time to kind of get disillusioned and believe like there's no good people in the world. So that when you do finally meet them, you're like, yes, please. Like, let me latch onto that. I don't want to lose that. So it gives a little bit more connection between the yokai world and the human world, but also explains why the fox spirit would so desperately want to see Natsume. Now, these elixirs to make people into humans, they're everywhere. There's just like these yokai have little elixirs to make people into humans all the freaking time. And I assume that it's just like a folklore thing that they have that little, it looks like the little piece of elixir. It's like solid. It's not a liquid. It's a solid that the fox spirit eats. It reminds me a lot of the medicine from the river spirit in Spirited Away. It looks like something like that. My theory is the yokai believe that humans are inferior. They believe that humanity is kind of like a level below them. But they're like, here's this thing we have. They could turn you into a human briefly. It's not going to last forever, but it's just like if you need it, but it's not something we necessarily desire to have. That's the only thing I can figure out as to why they would have an elixir that can make you human. And it doesn't work very long. It says it'll make him a human for a day, but like halfway through the day, he starts to turn back into a fox spirit. So it's not the most reliable, which coming from a shady spirit like this, I guess it makes sense. I do really like the androgynous clothes that the fox spirit wears. You can't tell if they're male or female, which connects to them being a spirit. Makes sense. I also like kind of the Spirited Away quality where the fox spirit is the only one in color or that stands out on the train from the others that are all kind of monochromatic. That part is really, really sweet. And then, yeah, they finally make their way to seeing. At first I thought they were going to come across Natsume when they're doing the fishing thing. And that whole scene, I love Madara trying to eat the fish out of the bucket. That was so funny. And Natsume's like, no, no. But the two bro friends like, man, you're really good at fishing, Natsume, which they connect to the fox spirit, which is awesome. But I thought the fox spirit was going to come across them there, but instead they find them in the house where they're all eating together as a family. And for a hot second, I thought the fox spirit was going to interrupt. I thought the fox spirit was going to interrupt them and that was going to be a thing, but that's not what ends up happening. Instead, it views them as a family and it doesn't get mad. The fox spirit, he doesn't get mad. He doesn't seem like he's disillusioned or sad about it. He's just like, oh, cool, good. Natsume has a family. They're not alone. It's just me that's alone. And I was like, that's so sad. Oh, don't say it that way, little fox spirit. Oh, no. It was just really heartbreaking, right? Super heartbreaking. And then as they start to run away, they trip and they lose their hat. And then, of course, Natsume gets it. And then he's like, you're the little fox spirit I met. And he gives it back. I love the way that they animate Natsume's face. It's so good. And they have this little moment together. It went on a little bit longer than I thought it would. It just kind of like lingered for a second. And I was like, is that the end of the episode? Is that where we're going to end? And then it finally picked back up. And I was like, okay. But then the fox spirit gets really sad and gives him a hug. It's so sweet. Aww. I like that for a second. It looks like Madara is going to go toward the hat and like grab it and run off with it. But that part was so sweet. And then I really like the shot of Natsume like holding the fox spirit in his arms, like when they're on the train. That part was really cute. I love that. I'm gonna get my subtitles off so I can take a good screenshot of that. That's so sweet. Like Natsume being this little like foster sibling. So freaking cute. And taking them all the way back in. I feel like Natsume taking the long way with the spirit so he can enjoy the moments with them and then use Madara to like fly back home so they're not back at an unreasonable time. But the one thing I like is at the very end of this episode when Natsume's like, oh, you amaze me. When I was all alone, I was afraid to take a single step and never occurred to me to take action. So I like that Natsume is like, I've been all alone for so long and I just thought that I would just stay that way and that's just the way that it was. But you've taught me that no, if you're alone, then do something about it. Take a step and make it to where you're not alone. And he's like, I never would have thought to take action. And you've taught me that, yeah, I would have missed out on a lot of things as a result. Oh, I love that because that's such a true life lesson. Like it's hard to take that first step. And that's been one of the big things about this series is Natsume taking that first step towards friendship. It's always hard because you're afraid of rejection. You're afraid of what happens if it doesn't work out, but you've got to take those steps because otherwise you might miss out on a whole lot of things in your life that you didn't even think was possible. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. So yeah. This episode was so sweet. The fox spirit was adorable. There was so many little screenshots and expressions that I want to take of them just being the cutest thing ever. And just the idea of Natsume being a friend and following up. I think that's another thing too, because I don't know if Reiko necessarily followed up with a lot of the spirits that she encountered. She just kind of made that initial contact and then that was it. And so I'm going to be curious to know more about Reiko as we go through the series, but I like what the show is doing subtly to slowly but surely develop Natsume's character as we go. I think that's absolutely beautiful and I love it. So yeah, I'm real curious to hear your thoughts down below about this episode, but I really enjoyed it. It didn't make me cry, but it got awfully close. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 8, Rule of 8, y'all. I'm super excited of Natsume's Book of Friends, Natsume Yujin-Cho. Bye.